Hi, my name is Sophia April, and for my year-long scenario project, I decided to write a book. To begin my project, I had to come up with goals for myself, and originally my goal was to write a 100-page book, but as I began working, I realized that was an unrealistic goal for myself, and I changed my goal from 100 pages to 50 pages, and I was able to successfully reach that goal. I also wanted to speak with another author, and I was able to have an over-the-phone conversation with an author named Patricia, and she gave me many helpful tips, but I'll get more into that experience later. And lastly, the whole goal of this project was for me to learn how to write a book, and I fulfilled this goal by researching about it, reading articles, watching videos, and things like that to give me more of a professional look into how to write a book. And then I also went back and looked at some of my notes from my prior classes and grades to refresh my memory on things that I had already learned or already knew. So my story is about 5 kids who are on a school field trip in Tongass National Forest, Alaska, which is the largest national forest in the nation. And while they're there, they go on a hike, and they unknowingly get separated from their group and wander off the trail. And by the time that they realize they aren't on the trail anymore, they are too lost deep in the forest and can't find their way back. And so being lost obviously is the main conflict, but there are other ones. These kids, they don't really like one another, or they don't know one another. But most of them have passed with each other or are conflicting in the present. They have very few survival skills, and for the main character, this forest brings back many unwanted memories and guilt, because in the previous year, her grandmother also got lost in this forest and passed away while she was lost. And so now I'm going to get into the aspects of the different important parts of writing. So to begin, I want to talk about characters and how you characterize them. There are 2 main ways to characterize your characters, and that is indirect characterization and direct characterization. So direct characterization is where you directly state what your character looks or acts like. So if an author writes that Shelby has blonde hair, then that is an example of direct characterization, because the author is directly telling the reader that Shelby's hair is blonde. Now, indirect characterization, on the other hand, is when the author describes the character through their speech, thoughts, their effect on others, their actions, and their looks. So, if an author wrote that Shelby sits alone at lunch, then us readers can infer that Shelby may be shy, and that is why she sits alone at lunch, and so through her actions we can find out different parts of her personality. So that's an example of indirect characterization. And so another thing I want to talk about is growing with your characters. You cannot force how their personalities on them. You have to let them grow and let them become what they become while you write. And then lastly, I want to talk about character motivation. So no one in real life just does things for the sake of doing it. Like, for example, no one is evil for the sake of being evil. That doesn't make any sense, because in real life someone may be evil because they want power, or because let's say maybe they want to get revenge on someone who hurt their feelings. That is a reason for people to be evil. And so your characters, just like people in real life, have to have motivations for the way that they act. So these are how my characters are in the beginning of the story. There is Stella Alston, who is just depressed, a pessimist. She's sad, obviously, because her grandma passed away. And next we have Elaine Williams, who is Stella's childhood friend. And Elaine is unhappy and she's lonely because obviously Stella isn't her friend anymore. And to fit in and have friends so she's not lonely, she joins the cheerleading squad and she becomes popular. And so she has friends, but she just feels really fake and she doesn't feel like herself. Next we have Abby Clark, who is the daughter of one of the rangers at the park, and she doesn't even go to the same school as these other kids, and she is forced to go on this hike by her mother, who is the ranger, and because her mother wants her to make friends. And so we find out that she is very shy, she is insecure, and obviously she's embarrassed because she doesn't want to be here and she doesn't know these kids. But as she comes out of her shell and we get to know her better, we find out that she's actually a very nice character. And next on the list we have JT, or Jacob Timothy Huxley, who is basically just your average popular boy. He is confident, he's sporty, he's stubborn, and he's never really had a real taste of life until now. And so this is a really big wake-up call for him. And next we have JT's half-brother, Cyrus Dalton, who is basically the exact opposite of JT. He is smart, he is socially awkward, and he is shy. And so just like Abby, as he starts to come out of his shell, we also find out that he is a very nice character. So next I want to talk about point of view. Point of view is an important thing to know before you begin writing, because it will determine how you write your characters and how the readers see the plot. So these are the different types of plot. There's first person, which is where the narrator is a character in the story and you see the story through their thoughts and feelings. So that is when the author will write like, I think, I feel. That is first person. Second person is when the narrator talks to you and the story is told from how you see it, so you think, you feel, second person. Third person limited is where the narrator is an all-knowing outsider who can enter one character's mind, so Stella thinks, Stella feels is third person limited. Third person omniscient is where the narrator is an all-knowing outsider who can enter the minds of two or more characters. So that would be like Stella thinks this, JT thinks this, Elaine feels this. That's third person omniscient, entering more than one person's mind. So third person objective is where the narrator is an outsider who can't go into any character's mind. So basically it's like the narrator is a bystander who's just watching everything going on, and we only get to hear things from the narrator's opinion. So next we have the plot, and so this is an example of a plot mountain. We start off with the exposition, which is where you find out the setting and just the general idea of what's going on, and usually we find out who the main character is. And so after that we have the inciting incident, which is the incident that incites everything that's going to happen. It is the beginning of the main conflict. And the rising action is where the main conflict starts to get worse and worse, and so bad that it almost seems like it is an unsolvable problem. And at the peak of the mountain, we have the climax, because that is the highest point of interest and can be the turning point of the story, but is mainly just the incident that is going to lead to the resolution and is going to lead to the conflict finally getting better. The falling action, which comes next, is kind of just the dwindling down of action in the story. Things are slowly starting to look on the bright side, you could say. And then the resolution is where the conflict is finally solved, and you could say the story has the happily ever after. And inside the plot mountain, there is the word conflict, and that is because the conflict is what drives the entire plot. And if there wasn't a conflict, then there would be no plot. And also under resolution, there's the word growth, because from the exposition to the resolution, the author, the reader, and the characters in the story experience growth. So this is what my plot looks like. There is the exposition, which is the bus ride to Tongass Forest, and their arrival there. We find out that Stella is the main character and obviously is not very happy with everything that is going on. And next we have the inciting incident, which is where they wander off the trail accidentally, unknowingly. That, of course, causes them to be lost, and that is the main conflict. And now we have the rising action, which is them lost for multiple days in the woods, just starts to get worse and worse, and their hope starts to diminish. And now we have the climax, which is where the kids find a hidden civilization that is in the forest, and the rangers have no knowledge about it, and these people are really welcoming. And we also find out that Stella's grandma, who we all thought was dead, is actually living in this civilization, and this is where she's been for the past year. And after that we have the falling action, which is where the grandma and the kids escape, and they leave the civilization. And then the resolution is everyone makes it out of the forest, and everyone is reunited with their families. You could say the happily ever after. So next, I'm going to talk about my meeting with Patricia Easton, who is a real author. And so when I met with her, I had a couple questions. And so my first questions were kind of about characterization, because I really wanted my characters to be realistic and relatable. And so she talked about growing with your characters and making sure they become who they become, just like real people, and also more about character motivations, and not just actions but also with feelings, like why people are so close with others, why people are having conflicts with each other, that kind of stuff. And that was very helpful. And I also asked her about how do you know if people will like the book that you're writing, and she told me that if you're writing for others, you're actually writing for the wrong reason, and you need to be writing to tell a story, and all that matters in the end is if you like it and if you are happy with the story that you told. And so this is how you can start your own book. You just start brainstorming. Authors pull ideas for their stories from real life experiences, and sometimes their characters are like them or someone they know. Sometimes the plot line is like something that happened in their real life, or maybe the story is about a dream they had, or sometimes ideas just hit them randomly, like getting an idea. And usually getting an idea to write takes time, but once you find the right idea, you will know, because when you start writing, you can't stop because the ideas just keep flowing. And so here are some writing prompts to get you started if you want to write your own book. So here's the first one. I opened the car door, but I couldn't step out. I just couldn't bear the idea of having to walk on this land and into this house. This house where, ... you fill in the blank. And the next one is, I saw the jet fly by overhead, and I knew that they were coming, ... you fill in the blank. And lastly, she opened the large oak doors, and inside I saw ... you fill in the blank. And so if you want, you can comment the first thing that pops into your head to complete these writing prompts. And that is basically just how you would start your story. So this is my works cited page. And thank you so much for watching. If you have any questions, you can comment them and I will do my best to reply. Thank you. Bye.